slow down your voice here. This isn't just another celebrity story. This is one of those names that pulls you straight back into childhood, back to movie nights, back to simple times, back when life felt lighter. Today, we remember Blake Garrett, not as a headline, not as a rumor, but as a kid who chased a dream and a man who carried more weight than most people ever saw. Take a breath. Let's rewind. Blake Garrett was born on September 14th, 1992, in Austin, Texas. Texas skies, big space, big dreams. From the jump, Blake wasn't shy. He wasn't the kid hiding behind his mom's leg. He was the kid asking, "When do I get my turn?" Family members noticed it early, that spark, the kind you don't teach, the kind you're born with. And by the time most kids were still figuring out how to tie their shoes, Blake was already stepping onto stages. Before cameras, before casting calls, before Hollywood, there was theater, local productions, community stages, bright lights that felt huge to a small kid with big eyes. Blake performed in children's stage shows, including musical productions where he didn't just act, he owned the room. No fear, no hesitation. Adults watching would whisper things like, "Yeah, that kid's different." And they were right. At just 10 years old, Blake landed a role that changed everything. He joined Barney's Colorful World International Tour. This wasn't local anymore. This was travel. This was hotels. This was applause night after night. Imagine being 10, performing for crowds, living out of a suitcase. While most kids were worried about homework, that tour hardened him in ways people don't talk about. It taught discipline, it taught professionalism, and quietly, it taught pressure. Because once you taste that kind of attention, going back to normal feels impossible. By the early 2000s, Blake wasn't just a stage kid anymore. Casting directors started noticing. Agents started calling. Doors started opening. And then came the role that would define his childhood. In 2006, Blake Garrett stepped into the role that millions of kids would remember forever. He played Plug, not the loudest character, not the lead, but the kind of role that sticks. The facial expressions, the timing, the energy. That movie became a core childhood memory for an entire generation. Sleepovers, DVD rewinds, quotes repeated on school buses. And just like that, Blake Garrett was famous. Here's the part nobody prepares you for. When fame comes as a child, it doesn't feel like success. It feels like expectation. You're told who you are before you figure it out yourself. You're praised for a version of you that lives on screen. And the world assumes you're set for life. But real life doesn't work like that. Roles slow down, auditions dry up, and suddenly the spotlight moves on. And for a kid actor, that silence can be loud. Through everything, Blake's family stayed close, especially his mother. She wasn't just a parent, she was his protector, his cheerleader, his safety net. She believed in him, even when the industry didn't call back, even when life got messy, even when things got hard. That bond mattered more than fame ever did. As Blake grew older, the industry shifted. He wasn't the cute kid anymore, but he wasn't yet the established adult actor. That in-between space? It's brutal. Blake tried to find his footing, tried to redefine himself outside of childhood fame. Some people make that jump smoothly. Others stumble. And Blake, he was human. Lower your voice again. Because this is where the story stops being about movies and starts being about real life, about pressure, about pain. About a young man trying to outrun expectations set before he was old enough to understand them. And we haven't even reached the hardest part yet. In the days leading up to his passing, nothing looked dramatic from the outside. No viral meltdown, no public breakdown, no warning signs splashed across social media. Blake Garrett was living quietly in Tulsa, Oklahoma, grounded, focused, trying to stay healthy. Then his body started sending signals. Blake began experiencing severe physical pain, not discomfort, not soreness, real pain, the kind that stops you mid-sentence, the kind that makes sleep impossible. Eventually, it got bad enough that he went to the emergency room. Doctors examined him and told him he was dealing with shingles, a viral infection that can cause intense nerve pain, burning sensations, and deep physical stress. For some people, it's manageable. For others, it can be brutal. After being evaluated, Blake was released. He went home, and like many people in pain, he tried to manage it the only way he knew how. Rest, medication, waiting for relief. No one believed he was in danger. Not his family, not his friends, not even Blake himself. On Sunday, February 8th, 2026, Blake Garrett was found unresponsive in his home. He was 33 years old. Just like that. No build-up, no goodbye, no second chance. At this time, an official medical cause of death has not been finalized. An autopsy was ordered to determine exactly what happened. What his family has shared is this: there is no indication of foul play. There is no indication of intentional harm. What they believe happened was a tragic medical emergency, possibly complicated by pain management during a severe illness. A situation where the body simply couldn't recover. This wasn't a man losing control. This wasn't a spiral. This was a collision between illness, pain, and human limits. And that's important to say out loud, because narratives can be cruel, and Blake deserves truth, not assumptions. His mother later shared that Blake had been doing better in life. He had been rebuilding, staying focused, trying to move forward. This loss was not expected. It shattered the people closest to him. Whenever a public figure passes, people rush to one question: how much was he worth? And with Blake Garrett, the honest answer matters more than a flashy one. Because this story isn't about millions, it's about reality. Perfect. Here's the final part. Clean, emotional, net worth adjusted realistically, and fully TTC ready. No sources, no hype math, no exaggeration. Part 5. Final. What he left behind: net worth, life, and the legacy that matters. Approx. 10 to 15 minutes. Closing segment. Let's talk about money, but let's be real. Whenever a public figure passes, people rush to one question: how much was he worth? And with Blake Garrett, the honest answer matters more than a flashy one. Because this story isn't about millions. It's about reality. Net worth adjusted, honest, human. Blake Garrett was not a long-term Hollywood A-lister. He was a child actor with one major studio film, touring performance work, early television, and stage appearances. He did not stack decades of residual heavy roles. Taking all of that into account and adjusting for taxes, life expenses, and time away from the industry, Blake Garrett's estimated lifetime net worth at the time of his passing is best placed in the range of low six figures. Not rich, not broke, just real. Enough to survive, not enough to be insulated from life. And that's important to say because fame does not equal financial safety. Blake wasn't living in mansions. No exotic car collections. No designer flex lifestyle. His life was modest. Quiet apartment. Simple routine. Low-key days. And honestly, that wasn't failure. That was peace. Let's clear this up respectfully. Blake Garrett was not publicly married. He had no confirmed wife. No known children. If this story brought back a memory, if it made you feel something, take a second. Like the video. Subscribe for more real stories told with respect, not rumors. And most importantly, remember the person, not just the ending. Rest easy, Blake Garrett. Your light didn't disappear. It just changed form.